Yeah, good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. What it do? Got my coffee. I don't know where you are in the world, but it's windy as all get out here at Long Beach, California, where we originate inside the Dream Creator Studio. So happy about today. Today is going to be an interesting conversation. We're going to take a very wide view of things around us, starting off in the city of Los Angeles. If you look around, in California, we got the elections coming up, primaries in June, and then the whole big election in November. Los Angeles looking for a new mayor. You're seeing the advertisings coming up, that the current mayor is out because of term limits, and then he's being appointed as the ambassador to India. It's going to India, Mayor Garcetti. So now people are saying Karen Bass and Congresswoman Karen Bass, people are saying now you see the ads. I don't know about you, but man, every commercial break is Rick Caruso. There's a whole lot of different names in this. I went online and there's 14 candidates for the Los Angeles city mayor. So today we're going to, examine that. We're going to meet one of the candidates that Brother John Jackson, he's running for mayor. He's going to talk about a few things. I'm wondering if we can bring him in now. If I do this, you all over there they are. Okay. Yay, John Jackson. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me, Greg.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Global city, Los Angeles.
Yes,
the Olympics are coming, and would you be in office should you get elected mayor when the Olympics come?
Yeah. I was here in Los Angeles when it came last time, of course. And yeah, they're preparing for it now. We're trying to, it's my understanding, we're trying to get it to come back again. And I hope I hope it happens. Yes.
Yeah. Good stuff. We're going to get into it in a few minutes. I'd love to hear your, vision for Los Angeles as you run for, mayor. There's a lot of people on that slate, I see.
Yes. Correction. There are 12 candidates.
12. Okay.
Yeah. We originally started with about 50. I think it was 50. And that came down to about 25. 50 filed, 25 made it to February 12th, I believe. And then of those 25, there are 12 of us that finally made it to the ballot. That's going to be on the ballot in June 7th.
All right. I want to bring in, she's here also. I just want to introduce and we're going to have a kind of a two-parter. We're going to get into John Jackson and his advocacy for the city of Los Angeles, but coming from another global city all the way, Johannesburg, South Africa. My friend, she is a award-winning broadcaster, very, very important, essential to telling the stories of South Africa through the South Africa Broadcasting Corporation. Nomsa Mdhuli. Can you hear me?
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Good. How are you today? Meet
Good,
John
thank
Jackson.
you.
Where's John?
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. Meet John Jackson. He is running for the mayor of Los Angeles.
Hi, John. It's an interesting time for you. All the best.
Yes, it is. How are
For
you?
the upcoming elections, I'm very good. We just came out of what we call municipal elections
Mhm.
in November, where we elected our mayors as well. So tough race for you. I mean, you've got quite a couple of people that you are running up against.
Oh, yes, yes. And they're qualified people too. Of course, we have a congresswoman that's running, and we have a billionaire that's running. And personally, I think he's trying to buy the election, but so as it may be. And then we have other qualified candidates, and I'm one of them.
All right,
Mhm.
all the best.
So, John, let me ask you. Okay, I've have quite a few politicians every now and again come and sip coffee with me, and so I would ask you the same question I asked them. Why you?
Well, what distinguishes me from other candidates is, and I want to just pick one particular issue that's very important to everybody in Los Angeles, and that's one of homelessness. It's been the homelessness issue has just been a tragedy here in Los Angeles. I remember when I first got here, and in the 70s, there were about supposedly 1,000 unhoused people. They weren't called homeless back then, but there were about 1,000 unhoused people, and they tend to be blue collar. Somebody did a research; they were blue collar white people who were just transitioning into other parts of their lives, and the unhoused were just temporary at that time. Now look where we are. Decades later, we're 44,000 homeless people, and the population of the homeless is a lot different from what it was then. And it's a large minority of them are, of course, people of color. But the homeless situation here is something that's just been ignored. But what separates me, what makes me different from the other candidates is I've been out there doing something about it. Um, Unfortunately, we have one candidate talking about what he can do or what he's going to do. Why haven't you done anything up until this point? Why have you waited just now? And then everybody else is talking about what they're going to do. Well, I've been out there doing something about this home, and I've been out there for 40 years. And it's been my passion. It's been my drive that every day, 5 days a week, I'm just out there doing something to alleviate this problem because it's a tragedy and we shouldn't allow it.
Mhm.
And
So let me ask you a question. So yeah, the homelessness issue certainly top of mind in all the municipalities around our area. Um, I just want to ask you a question. What can be done? Is it more services? Is it more police? I mean, that's really the center of the debate, right? We have all of this homelessness, and then all of, if you approach them, it's often in some cities around our region. Sometimes it's intervention by the police. Some say that we need more mental health workers and more services and all of that. And some say there's just a lack of affordable housing. What is your number one tactic in this ginormous problem that you said is job one?
well, I think it's attitude.
Mhm,
I really don't even like the word homelessness. It implies that, these people, this is their home. Los
mhm,
Angeles is their home. California is their home. This country is their home. They just happen to be unhoused. That's the problem. They're unhoused. And services, I don't like that word either because it implies that we're just trying to service them and make them comfortable in their homelessness. First of all, it's an attitude problem. We've always had, I'm talking about our politicians and even us as voters and as the general public, we have an attitude problem about the homeless. And but that being as it may, the first thing that I'm going to do is find out where all that money is going. Homelessness, helping the homeless is a big business. Just an example, you and I allowed ourselves to be taxed in 2016 to the tune of $365 million a year for the next 10 years. Okay, keep that in mind. $365 million. In November of 2016, I remember just running to the polls, because I wanted to vote for Measure H and make sure I was doing my part to get this money to help the homeless. Now, we had 33,000 homeless at the time, 33,000. And since then, the U.S. government has tossed in about $1 billion. The state of California gave us another $1 billion to handle this problem. To date, we've spent or have about $4.1 billion for the homeless to help them, to do something for them, whether it be housing or other services. Excuse me. Now, think about it: 33,000 people who homeless in 2016, and today. We should have less than that, but we don't. We have more than that, an increase of almost a third, 44,000, 45,000 people who are homeless today. You know, we have to ask ourselves, where'd that money go? Where'd that money? If you can't help people with just 33,000, you start out with 33,000. If you can't help them with $4.1 billion, something is not right with the system. Now, I've been out there, and no other candidate has been out there, by the way. I've been out there for 40 years, but let's just talk about the last 6 years that I've been out there. A lot of that money has gone to services for the homeless. Will you try to find some services for the homeless?
Let me ask you this, Mr. Jackson, like real talk, and then I would like, Nomsa, I want you to jump in here. I know I'm sure your editorial mind might be finding a little curiosity in this discussion, but Mr. Jackson, I wanted to ask you, what about the drugs though? A lot of times, the reason, people are out here, a number of different situations and circumstances causes them to be living on the street. I think drug is a big problem, not everybody. And I think mental health is a big problem. Don't you think that there should be some support for those people, or what's the real remedy in your mind?
Of course.
Real short. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it is. Drugs is a problem out there. A big problem, especially with us, people of color, and that's a lot of that is with us. And
it's a lot, Doc. It's like, hey, this is going down on these streets.
Yeah, it is. And we do have to provide some support for that, some services for that. You can take someone off the street, but if you don't try to help them with the other problems that are associated with it, you're not going to accomplish anything. Yes, we do have to have some rehab. Yes, we do have to have medical, and don't forget the mental part of it. There are people with mental problems and emotional problems that are out there. And that has to be taken care of it. So after you get that person off the street, well, yes, you do have to have other support issues. There are other support issues that need to be taken care of. And it has to go hand in hand. Just taking someone off the street is not the solution. That's just part of it.
All right. So Nomsa, you're listening to all of this, our big city problems out here. You live in a big city over there. Ooh, one of the largest cities on the whole continent of Africa, and how many listeners do you have? And then just say, I would like to have a clear understanding of how large your audience is. And then I'd love for you to, when you hear these Los Angeles problems, what are your initial thoughts?
Okay. Firstly, I work for the SABC News, which is a news agency for all the 20 radio stations that belong to the SABC. So, we've got only one station that has 7 million listeners. So one of them. So it's a huge audience. In terms of the radio market, SABC, radio has 70% of the radio market in South Africa, but we also have TV channels. We also have social media channels. So we have the majority of people, more especially those in poorer areas. Sometimes you find that the SABC News is the only source of information. So we really carry such a huge responsibility of ensuring that, the news that we carry is fair, it's impartial. So a huge responsibility lies on our shoulders and our journalists as well. Yeah, listening to listening to the mayoral candidate there. I mean, when he's asking about where did the money go, you thinking, is he talking about Johannesburg? Is he talking about the municipalities here in South Africa? So it seems like it's quite a global issue where you find that money that is supposed to serve people, that is supposed to be for the welfare of people, sometimes is used for something that you know it's not, for things that are not right. So it's also something that we tackle with all the time in South Africa. I don't know the extent of corruption here in the US, but here it's quite big, and it's something that the media here in South Africa has been quite dedicated to exposing as well, because that when the money goes into the pockets of politicians or people whom the money is not supposed to serve, that means that people on the ground suffer, and they don't get what is due to them.
Mm-hmm. I know that South Africa just lifted its COVID restrictions, I guess yesterday or really recently. I read that
Last week.
last week.
Yeah.
Okay, and then John, we are coming out of, we're in recovery also globally. What's your plan should you be elected by end of 2022 in November? How, John, will you continue the recovery of the city of Los Angeles?
Well, I believe that we need to pay more attention to what the CDC has to say.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. We just lost him there. Nomsa, there you are.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it looks like we lost him. They'll come back in a minute. Good stuff, though. Good stuff. Gnomes, I know that I'd like to just really concentrate on, we'd like to provide these different perspectives, and we're all about building bridges of music, arts, and culture with Africa and African Americans, and so I'm glad you came. We've had Tommy and Gobani on here a couple of times, and we talk about, we contrast. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about while we're getting Mayor Jackson is one thing that is on every news station in America is this war in Ukraine. And I listen to South African radio just because I love the music, I love the perspectives, and news from a news perspective, your view of the world is a little different. And I thought that it was really, really interesting to hear when the war first broke out. I was listening to South African radio. I'm hearing people from the Russian embassy on the air, explaining what their position was, and I said, "Oh wow, this is really, really interesting." Whereas here, you don't hear that, you don't get that perspective. It's just that we're told that Russia is doing a bad thing and all of that. And I'm still trying to figure out the whole reasoning of it. But I heard Julius Malema, the opposition leader in your country, say that they were going to stand with Russia because Russia stood with South Africa during apartheid. Then the other day, I know that they had at the United Nations, they had a vote, and South Africa abstained from the vote, and President Biden and Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, got together to caucus. What was that about? What's your view?
One thing that I love about South Africa, and that I also hate about South Africa at the same time, is we try to be nice to everyone. So a lot of the instances, because we're trying our level best to be the middle person, sometimes it's not for good. So yes, the ruling ANC or the government of the day, is seen to be taking sides with Russia because it has not condemned Russia. But the official statement from government is that it's not going to take sides, but what it's going to do is encourage dialogue between the two parties. About last month, you had the President Cyril Ramaphosa giving a call to Vladimir Putin. We don't quite know what the context of the call is all about, but there has been a lot of criticism on the ground, saying that even if you have a relationship with a certain country, you can still condemn their actions as well. So, what you've also said about Julius Malema and the fact that the Soviet Union stood with South Africa during apartheid, Ukraine was also part of the Soviet Union. So that's also what people don't realize. And that's always been the issue with our government, is that with all the human rights atrocities that South Africa, more especially the Black majority, experienced in the past, we should be the first to condemn such actions when it happens in other countries. But our government is always, cautious when it comes to these things. And sometimes it is annoying, but there are people on the ground, other opposition parties like the Democratic Alliance, where there's a Western Cape legislature where they govern, where they actually lit the building with the colors of Ukraine. You've got ordinary South Africans that have come out and outrightly condemned that attack on Russia. In terms of news coverage, it's been a tricky one to cover, because a lot of our local media do not have agencies in both these countries. So we've also been, in terms of feeds, we've been relying on overseas media as far as that story is concerned. So it's been a tough balancing act, where people have also ordinary South Africans have also said, we want to hear both sides of the story. And this is something that we've also tried to do as well.
All right, I think we got John Jackson back here. I want to, while we segue and bring him back in, so I want to ask you: is there a homeless issue in Johannesburg or in South Africa?
There is, more especially in the big cities, because these are more especially, cities like Cape Town and Johannesburg. These are cities where there's a lot of economic opportunities, where people will come with a hope of finding jobs, with a hope of, finding their dream life. And sometimes you find that it does not happen, and people end up in the streets. And so it's quite a phenomenon in big cities. We have a huge problem.
What would you like to ask mayoral candidate John Jackson?
What I want to ask you is, it's also something that I've observed with elections here at home, is that a lot of the times you find that candidates are listing what they're going to do. What I want to ask you is, what do the people of LA want? Have you actually gone around and spoke to them? And what you're listing, is it aligned to their needs?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear your last sentence.
Okay, what I'm asking is, with elections, coming up, it seems like there's an echo. I don't know whether it's on my side.
No,
have you been
two screens? I think we should. I think I just fixed it just now.
Okay, all right.
Try it, John.
John, I'm gonna try again. Do you know what the people of LA really need? And your vision for the city, is it aligned to their needs and their vision?
I believe.
Okay, you got two. I'm gonna take one of your streams out, okay? Because you've got two up here. Let me just do this. You've got two cameras for some reason.
Okay.
We'll kick you out. Kick that one out. All right. Try that.
and people
Okay,
are,
there we go.
the main thing that people are talking about is the homelessness,
Mm.
the homeless issue, and I went to the store the other day, to the department store with someone on my campaign, and the person there, the first thing they wanted to talk about was the homeless, about this lady that he sees on his way to work. She's living on the streets of Los Angeles, and that's something that you see every day. You come to work, whether you go to church on Sunday, you come to work every day, you go to school, our children see it. It's something that's there, and it's something you can't ignore, and you see it all the time, and something has to be done about it, and it's an attitude problem, right? Somebody has to own that problem, because the solution to owning, the solution to changing anything, the solution to curing any kind of problem you have is ownership. That our politicians, and especially the mayor of the city, has to own that problem. When you own that problem, you decide that you're going to take care of it, and you're not going to pan it off to somebody else, or you're just not going to put the homeless someplace else or put them in someone else, because as mayor, you can't send them someplace else. This is your city. You're responsible for that problem. So you have to own it, and that's what I plan on doing. I'm going to own that problem, and if the solution, if you can't cure it, if you can't take care of it, or at least lessen it, then it's going to be on me as mayor. It's going to be my problem, and it's going to be my problem to take care of, to resolve, to try to come to terms with this problem.
And what do you think? Why do you think you've got such a problem? Is it the socioeconomic issues?
Unfortunately, there are many reasons for it. You can't just say one thing is responsible for it. There's so many. There's so many. Homelessness. They're just, when you try to find the root to this problem, it's just like a tree. There's so many roots that make up that trunk, and trying to find one particular cause for it. But the thing that you have to do, though, is get it from all avenues. There's drugs, of course there's jobs, and there's mental issues, but the basic thing, I think that the thing that needs to be taken care of is finding these people a place to stay. Because let's face it, if a person doesn't have a place to stay, you can't help him resolve the other problems that are associated with it. If he has a drug problem, well, you can't help him with that drug problem if he's living in a box, or if he's living in a tent under a freeway. You have to find a place for that person to stay first, and then you have to you have to feed that person, because each day of a homeless person is filled with finding a place to live before the rain hits them that night, or finding food to eat that day. And if you can't resolve those basic problems, you're not going to be able to take care of any other problem. So the basic needs need to be taken care of first before you can resolve any other problem.
Mr. Jackson, let me ask you a question. Okay, so now, find them a place to stay, but the rent is too doggone high. What about rent control, and what are we going to talk about? How are we going to help alleviate, financial pressure on people as they come out of the pandemic? Because I do think that, affordable housing is lacking. The rents are just going too high.
And
That's contributing to homelessness.
You know what? And you're absolutely right. It's very unfortunate, but we have another problem. That moratorium is going to be lifted pretty soon, and we're going to see a lot of foreclosures, and there's going to be a lot of people going to be homeless again. Incidentally, that's the particular business that I'm in. I discovered about 40 years ago that one reason for homelessness is that people go into foreclosure and they can't take care of that problem, and eventually they're out there on the streets. They become homeless. So I decided 40 years ago that that's what I would do. It's easy to identify. If you can identify a problem before it before it happens, it's easier and it's cheaper to take care of the problem than it is to pull someone out of homelessness. If you can prevent from someone from becoming homeless, it's a lot cheaper and it's a lot easier. For example, in California, uh, when you get ready to go into foreclosure, your bank is getting ready to put you out on the streets because you've missed payments or whatever. I find out about it, and I find out about it. Your name comes across my desk every morning for the last 40 years. And what I do is I send people out there to try to find out if they can help you. And that's how I've gotten involved in foreclosures. And by law, we have 3 months to help you, to do something, to find out before the bank can come in and put you out on the streets. Now, we've been successful over the years, and a lot of times we aren't. And we've been able.
So you're a foreclosure relief specialist, or
what we do is we find people who are about ready. We're a foreclosure listing company, and we find people who are who are about ready to go into foreclosure, about ready to lose their home, and we gather all the information that we can, the public information that we can about them, and we provide that information to. I provide that information to my employees and to our affiliates, and we send people out. They contact you either they call you, or they send letters to you, or they come knocking at your door, and
say what?
And,
Like,
and well, they try to find out. They try to find out how they can help you. There are many reasons why people go into foreclosure, why they miss that payment. Maybe you lost your job. Could be a divorce. It could be a death in the family. There are many reasons why people miss those payments, and it's their job to find out why. And chances are, if you went into foreclosure and someone came knocking at your door, they got that information from me, and that's how we helped. That's how I've been helped.
So you're publishing the homes that are foreclosed. Okay, I'm just trying to get a clear understanding of what you're saying that you do. So you're publishing the list of homes that are in foreclosures.
Well,
And if I'm a hard money lender or speculator or somebody who wants to buy that, I'm getting that listing from you.
Well, yeah, we do sell that information to hard money lenders. Not too many of them. Most of the people that buy and that get our information, some of the people that we give it to as well, are nonprofits, are real estate agents, because they can come out and they can see if they can help you refinance or something. Hard money lenders, yes. Maybe you can use a hard money loan to get you out of the water get you out of deep water for a minute. Yes, yeah, that's what we do.
And so that's I mean, I'm sure you're doing a big business there, and you've been around a long time. You've been a staple in the community a long time.
Yeah,
that's what I heard you say, right?
Yes, we've been doing it for since '86, and unfortunately, that's going to happen again. And as soon as that moratorium there have been people that are in foreclosure prior to March of 2019 when the moratorium took effect. And the moratorium I'm talking about is when the CDC said that you cannot evict someone during the COVID crisis, but that's going to end. That's going to end pretty soon.
Eventually, yeah. They're still debating that one. I feel like they're gonna. I mean, they keep putting extensions on the moratorium there.
They do.
Yeah.
But keep in mind that there were a lot of people that were hurting prior to March 2019, and those people can't be saved. On March 19th, when they started the moratorium, there were already just in Los Angeles alone, there were almost I think it was almost 5,000 to 10,000 people that were already in trouble, and their houses were already set to go to auction in the next 6 months after that. But of course, that was stopped.
Just a couple questions from the folks that are out there tuning in to sip coffee with us. Here's Dr. Gloria Willingham. Gloria, let me just tell y'all, she is really, really something. She too, Sister Nomsa, Dr. Gloria Willingham Torre, is also one of my Africa connections. She is a like-minded African American who builds bridges with the continent and America. She's someone that you should know for sure. Thank you for checking in there, Dr. Gloria. She's asking you, John Jackson, do you think the availability of housing options, such as the demise of rooming houses, in which persons could rent single rooms, impacted on the growth of the homeless population? Is that a problem?
Do I think that? I'm sorry.
So she's saying, do you think that the availability, the demise of rooming houses, has that been a factor towards the growth of the homeless population?
I don't. I think it's just been the cost.
How about family dynamics?
Well, of course, that affects a lot of things. Yes, the family dynamics as well. But the cost of housing has increased over the years, and that affects a lot. And there needs to be some kind of controls for that. There has to be some kind of balance. I understand that mortgage costs increase, so managers or property owners who rent out to people, they have to increase their rent a little bit to make some money. I understand that. And at the same time, people who are renting more and more, I've heard studies that now, when we used to pay a third of our income towards rent, we're now paying almost half. There has to be a balance. I'm wondering if rent control is the answer, and I think I'd like to see more of that. I'd have to look at it a little bit more. I have a lot of friends that are property owners, and they own apartment buildings, and a lot of them don't like that idea, and there's some of them that thinks if it's in moderation, of course, it's a good idea. But there's no doubt that there has to be there has to be a compromise, if anything, on what we're going to do about the cost of housing.
I'm just sitting here thinking. I'd like to ask you. There's so much I would like to just go down the road right now, but I think I'm gonna pull back a little bit and just, let's put our lens on, our global lens on. LA is Los Angeles is a world city. That's why we're having expansions of our rail system, and this is one of the cities of the entire world. And right now we're trying to knit put a plank in the bridge right now globally, even on this conversation. How do you return LA to what is in your lifelong being a Los Angelino? What is it that makes Los Angeles a global destination?
The people. The people are our most important asset. I myself, my mother's Filipino. I was born in the Philippines, and I came to this country for the first time when I was 9 months old. And we didn't come via Ellis Island, but we came on a boat and landed in San Francisco on a military boat, by the way. I went back and forth to the Philippines because my father was in the military, but I finally settled in California in my 20s. Now, it's the people. The people make Los Angeles what it is. And I'm glad that I finally settled here in Los Angeles. I was looking forward to coming to Los Angeles. It's so many different types of people, so many different cultures. You can just travel just a few miles north, and you can go through many different cultures. It seems like you're going through different parts of the world when you just travel, 5 miles to the east, 5 miles to the west, and you can go through Koreatown, Japantown, Filipino town, and you just see many cultures, and it's the people that makes it what it is. And I think that we need more representation, and we're getting more representation. I hope to be the first Afro-Asian American mayor of this city, and I bring that to this city as an example, because the environment, the people of Los Angeles, we're a very homogeneous city, and I've lived in that culture in the Philippines for half of my life up to 16, up to when I was 16, and the rest of my life after that has been here in the United States.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
my father's a Black man from the South. My mother's a Filipina, raised in the Philippines, and I'm proud of both cultures. So I'm familiar with that. I know what the Asians go through in this city, and at the same time, I know what what my father has gone through in the
Mhm.
United States. So I have those learning experiences, if you will. And
All right. So listen, Mr. Jackson, I want to talk to Nomsa for a while here, and I wanted to just take this moment to thank you so much for coming in to sip coffee with us and share your perspectives of Los Angeles. Um, any quick words that you want to say to the people as that you want us to know about your candidacy?
yeah, I just want to say that that it's very important for the people of Los Angeles to know that anything and everything that happens in this city, ultimately we have the responsibility, we the voter. And the direction that this city goes into, it's our responsibility. If it's not going right, it's because of you and I. It's because we have not paid attention to it, or we have not put the right people into it. If there's a homeless problem, it's our fault, because we don't expect that much from our. We're not demanding that much from our politicians. What all the candidates are talking about is what they're gonna do when they become elected, if they get elected. And I've just been talking about what I've been doing for the last 40 years. And I've been taking people off the streets, and my estimate is that I've taken at least 40 people out of your backyard, out of the streets of Los Angeles, and I've given them the opportunity to live that California dream, and I've taken them off the streets. That's 400 people more than any other politician, than any other candidate, because I'm not a politician. But that's 400 people more, and no one can make that claim. I've been there, and you can't say what you're going to do if you haven't done it. And I've been doing. That's been my life job, and I've seen it, and I've been there. And I want to thank you, Greg, for giving me the opportunity to give that message to the people of Los Angeles.
Yes, sir. Keep on striving. John Jackson, he's running for mayor of Los Angeles. Would you say you were trying to be the first, what did you just say? Afro-Asian American?
Yeah.
So you saying Blasian. You Blasian. So,
yeah,
right.
Blasian American.
John Jackson, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
All right. Nomsa, what you think?
Well, I think what impressed me, one of the things that he said is that he's not promising people what he's going to do for the city, but he actually has a track record of what he's done for the city. And I think that's what people need. I haven't heard the others, but I would vote for him based on that and the fact that he's not a politician, which is a plus.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know what? We always say here, Coffee Conversations with Greg J, the most important thing to everybody listening is that they do vote. We're not going to tell you who to vote for. You vote for who you want to vote for. That's what the beautiful thing about it. But certainly vote. Do not. They're trying to restrict our voting rights. They're trying to take us back to the 60s all across the country. You see it in the headlines. Texas is off the chain right now, trying to figure it out. Georgia too. It's just really all across the country trying to remix the voting rights laws and everything. So it's important for us while people are out there fighting that battle for us to continue to vote.
Absolutely.
Wow. So Nomsa, thank you so much for coming here. Listen, I want to ask you, all right, I want to just switch lanes to pop culture real quick. Headlines. Did you guys in South Africa, do y'all care that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock? Was that big
Oh my
news in
goodness.
your
It
area?
was huge. I mean, I had other plans for Monday morning. I get there at 3 a.m. in the morning, and we're preparing for I mean, a typical Monday morning when it's mainly court stories. And of course, this happened.
Mm.
This happened, and it sparked a lot of conversations about
Mhm.
the protection of Black women.
Mhm.
Was Will Smith right in protecting his wife that way? But it
Mhm.
also spoke to, there were also discussions of it seems like we are accustomed to solving conflict through violence,
Mhm.
and we have to find other ways.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
has to do with our violent history. As a people, I'm not going to say just Black people, but
Mhm.
it seemed like as a human race, we have to find better ways. There could have been a better way
Mhm.
for Will Smith to handle that. I think for me, the only way in which one can justify violence is when somebody's life is at risk, and
Mhm.
you're trying to protect them. And the sad thing about him is he won an Oscar right after um, that incident, and it took away that glory,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Yes.
And yeah, and I about a month ago, I actually read his book, where he actually spoke about his father's violent ways. So it
Mm.
was just so sad that, his glorious moment was just taken away by that
Mhm.
act. Of course, we love the Oscars.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. See, that's so interesting. What is your what? I want to. Well, what did you think when Jada said, "Hey, I'm not a woman who needs protecting"?
So
Did she?
I actually somehow I missed that.
Ah.
Sure. Yeah, perhaps her and her husband need to have a talk about how to handle such situations, and it shouldn't play out in public.
Mhm.
Yes, what Chris Rock said and the way he went on about Jada, and the fact that the condition that Jada has is a medical condition.
Mhm.
There are things that you should joke about, but
Mhm.
not somebody's medical condition. So I found that to be quite childish and uncalled for.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Smiths,
So,
man.
in this space of entertainment and pop culture gossip, what's the big story in South Africa?
What's going on?
She's like, I
Jeez,
don't know. I'm bringing the real news.
I hardly follow those. We have so much happening at the moment.
Mm.
We have floods, we have interesting court cases. So those
Mhm.
are the kind of things that I have been consuming myself with.
Mhm.
Yeah, nothing quite happening.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
let's see. So the number one news story right now, is it the Ukraine war, or what's going on?
No, there are a lot of so we had a goalkeeper who was also the captain of our national soccer team who was murdered
Bafana
back in
Bafana.
20. Yes, Bafana Senzo Mewa.
Mhm.
Um, it's just been a murder case. You must actually go onto Netflix and watch it. So the trial has finally started. Five men have been accused of being, involved in the murder, but we still don't know who the mastermind is.
Okay, so wait. So
So the
the
documentary
the
is on Netflix. Mm.
and what's it called?
It's called Senzo Mewa, SENZO MEYIWA.
Is this the one that was married to the singer?
Well, the singer was the side chick. Senzo was actually married. He had another wife. So now after
The
this,
gospel
because
singer.
she's not. She's a pop singer. Yeah, I think maybe she established her her career singing gospel. I don't know.
Okay.
Um, but what's been happening? Senzo was married, so this lady that she was having an affair with Senzo was killed in front of her and her family.
I
So of course
remember
there
that.
was big family wars and all that. But people are asking. It seems like she didn't have a motive. The wife had more of a motive. So yes, people who pulled the trigger have been arrested, but
Mhm.
what we are waiting for is actually for the mastermind to appear in court, because we want to know who that person is and
Mm.
what the motive is, because a lot of people saying this guy was at the peak of his career. He was
Mm.
such a nice guy. Nobody could imagine somebody having ill feelings towards him. So that's what we're waiting for.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow,
And
very interesting.
yeah. So
Mhm.
that's been one of the big stories. We've had heavy rains, and in Durban,
Mm.
which is a coastal area, about 44 people have died. We heard the news
Ah.
today. So yeah, that's we've ruined our planet.
Mhm. Speaking of
No,
Durban, that's KwaZulu-Natal, Kingdom
it's
of
in
the
KwaZulu.
Zulus. And we have, we hear so much in America about the British royals. Oh my God, they're all over the news, all over the news. So when King Goodwill Zwelithini passed away and then the Queen passed away, I began to share on this platform. I wanted, African Americans to know that, hey, here's a royal story, you know what I'm saying, in Mother Africa, and I know that recently the president recognized, I guess, the new king of the Zulus, and it's all good and everything like that. Express to our audience why that's important to traditional leadership and all of that being kind of mixed in with uh, uh, your regular government and everything. Why is that important? And when's the coronation? Because I'm trying to come.
Well, it's important because during the apartheid years, a certain language and a certain culture was subjected on Black people, and we lost a lot of who we are.
Mm.
So, by government recognizing traditional leadership, it's a preservation of our culture. And South Africa is so multicultural. I mean, we've got 11 official languages,
Mm.
and you don't find it's quite a multicultural society, but you still do want those people to preserve who they are, their language, their African way of life, because colonialism and apartheid took that away from us. So
Mhm.
the coronation is on the 28th of May, and because the Zulu nation is South Africa's largest nation. The Zulu language is widely spoken across the country. Um, so it's quite a big thing. It's quite a big thing what happens in that royal family. There've been fights in terms of who should take over, but that's what you get in a polygamous situation.
Mm.
So that's what's been happening. So yeah, so King Misuzulu
Mhm.
Kazwelithini,
Mhm.
will become the next king of the Amazulu nation. That will be the 28th of May.
How do I get some media credentials? Come on, hook a brother up. Let me
We
come
can
over
hook you
there.
up. Hook you up.
I want to come and do it, but I really want to see it and
Mm,
report on it because I just think it's fascinating,
it is.
to us and well, to me. I mean, I just started just putting it out there. I met King Goodwill in when I was in Durban.
Oh, you did. I've
We
never
ran,
met
yeah,
you.
we ran
Lucky.
into him. We ran into him in a store,
Mm.
and they wouldn't let us take pictures or anything, but it was him.
He had that. He had a very strong presence.
Hmm.
And what we actually heard about his death is that he went in for another problem, and while he was in hospital, he actually contracted COVID-19.
Oh,
So it
okay.
was quite a shock,
Hmm.
when that news came, because he commanded such a presence. And more than a year later, there's the heir to the throne will ascend.
Hmm.
And I must say, I love all South African cultures, but it's just something majestic about the Zulu culture.
It really
So
is.
I think the coronation is going to be something else.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I got me a Zulu man.
That's right. That's right. Now, are you going to the coronation?
No, I'm not. I'll be watching the proceedings from the comfort of my own home.
Okay, all
But
right.
we've got reporters covering that.
Do me a favor, look and see how I could get some credentials in there.
Let's talk about that
Let's
off air.
talk about that. Yeah, that's a. It's interesting. We've been like I said, we've been covering it, and I
Mhm.
when I look at the new king's picture,
Mhm.
I see that he looks exactly like his. I think that's his great grandfather.
King
I
Cetshwayo, there's
Yes.
such a strong resemblance.
OMG, it is real. It's like
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really something.
Yeah.
And I remember
Yeah.
him. I'll tell you a story, Noam, so you know that I come over there for the
Mhm.
Cape Town Jazz Festival and everything. So I'm bringing one of my groups, and we go to the fort in Cape Town, right there, right?
Yes.
And anyway, the fort. My groups are African Americans. So by the time we get
Mhm.
to Cape Town on that tour, we've seen a lot of apartheid stuff, and under under the good time that we're having, we got a little bit of an attitude, right? So we go into this fort, and you're seeing the European, influence on really at a
So,
high level inside of that fort. And then when you go and there's these statues of their famous prisoners that they had, they
mhm.
were very proud that they captured these people and put down. And one of them was King, say it again, Tetsuayo.
Mm.
And I would remember I took a picture with that statue, and I remember
Mm.
just being really, really upset that they took such pride in capturing this king of
Mm.
the Zulus, and it was
Mm.
really just made me angry. So I studied his story and everything like that. And so then when this new king came and I looked at the pictures, I was like, oh wow, that's definitely
Mm.
his son. So you say this is because of a polygamous society that they were having such disagreements within the family.
It was because in such a look, there was a court case. So in South Africa, we've got you can either get married under customary law,
Hmm.
and under customary law, it means you can take as many wives as
Mhm.
as you want. So it makes room for polygamous relationship. There's also a civil union,
Mhm.
which it's one man, one wife.
Mhm.
So when the king first married his wife, it was under civil union. And then that was before he ascended to the throne. So
Mm.
after he ascended to the throne, he then took Misuzulu's mother. Misuzulu's mother is a princess of
Mhm.
Eswatini.
Mhm. Mhm.
So her father was a king.
Mhm.
And actually, the whole of the Zulu nation paid lobola to her. So lobola was taken to the kingdom of Eswatini, which neighbors South Africa,
Mhm.
and she came. So and then obviously other wives came. So the first wife was obviously disputing the will of the will and testament of the king, which gave the queen who passed away last year, Queen Dombifuti from Eswatini, it kind of made her to be in charge of executing. So she was the executor.
Mm.
And it also stated that she must choose the next king.
Mhm, mhm,
So now the first wife was disputing that. Obviously, if it was just one wife, and so they've always been. But if you study the history of Amazulu and the appointment of a king, it's never been an easy road. I mean,
mhm, mhm.
even King Zwelithini, at some point in the early years, or when he was appointed king, he had to hide because there were death threats. You think of Shaka Zulu as well, and his brothers. Shaka was killed by his brothers.
Mhm,
So the Zulu throne has always been a contentious thing, and in dating back to history, it's led to bloodshed. Well, things have changed now. Thankfully, this has not happened with Musuzulu, but there've been court proceedings back and forth. So if you read that history, it's also quite interesting.
mhm, mhm. Very much so. Wow, wow. That's really something, and I did see, one thing about it is when the queen passed and I
Mm,
posted that on my social media, I mean, I got so many people, asking, "Why don't we know about this queen? Why don't we know about this
mm,
queen?" And these are just the stories that we don't know about here in America, and it's just a point
mm.
of interest, you know.
Yeah, we live in a patriarchal society, and a lot
Mhm.
of these great men are made by the women that stand behind them.
That's right.
and and a lot of the times we get to read about these amazing women when the husbands die. So it's a patriarchal society that we live in,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I know that polygamy. I was in Zululand and a radio broadcaster, one of your broadcasters for the SABC. I was at an event and he was there. I had met him. He was here in America. That's where I met him. And then when I saw him at the event, he had three wives. And he says, "Oh, let me introduce you to my three wives." And I was like, "Okay, my dude." Yes.
People don't mind sharing.
Yes.
Some people were brought up in that cultural context. It
Yes.
suits others. It does not suit women like me. But
That's
yeah,
right.
we just embrace people's choices, I guess.
And I went into Eswatini. It was Swaziland then. I rented a
Mhm.
car and I drove from Durban all into Swaziland and all around. And a friend of mine who works in the King's administration had arranged some meetings for me all through the area. It was really a fascinating trip for me to
Mhm.
be driving all over the kingdom of Swaziland. It was pretty cool. Mhm. And
Well,
so
you
much.
should seem like you've traveled Southern Africa quite. We can't wait to have you again.
Yeah, yeah, we're planning next year. We just came back from Ghana, so I've been doing West
Mhm.
Africa. So
Mhm.
December, I was in Ghana, and we are planning to go again this year. And then in 2023, I want to come back to the Cape Town Jazz Festival.
It will be nice to
Mhm.
have you back.
Yes, yes. All
Mhm.
right. Nomsa, can you please tell me the correct pronunciation of your last name?
It's Mdluli. Mdluli. It's quite a
Includely,
complex one.
yes,
Mdluli.
includely, yes.
Mdluli. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Award-winning broadcaster. She is definitely the woman. Now, you know what, Gnomes? I want to ask you if you would just, from time to time, come back to Coffee Conversations and let's have a
Oh,
conversation about compare news headlines. Right? I think or this could be a really good um, piece of source of information for the people because
mhm.
we in America, African Americans, we are searching for our roots. We are more awake now than we have been in a long time. There is a cultural revolution now going on among the people, and part of that elevation that should come out of cultural revolution is connection with Mother Africa,
Mm.
west, south, east, and
Mm.
north. We need to do that. And I think also too, we want to dispel myths about Africa because some black folk, when they thinking what they show us with the diseased children and the starving kids and the famine and all of this stuff that they show us in America, we don't know that there are progressive, intelligent, goal-oriented executives like yourself over there on the continent of Africa. And so I think it's
There's
my
a lot
job
on
to
that. Yeah.
right?
And that's also why it's important for Africans to tell their story. Yeah.
That's a true thing. So we need to keep this channel open. Call me anytime. Let's get it.
Will do. I'll be
Okay.
glad to be back. Thank you so much, Greg. It was nice catching up with you again.
Yeah, it's nice to catch up with you too. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, y'all. I'll circle back with you. I have something to ask you. Okay. All right, y'all. There we have it. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Sister Nomsa Mdhuli. Brother John Jackson. He was running for mayor of Los Angeles. You got a chance to chit chat with him. Nomsa is a renowned broadcaster, editor over there in South Africa. Millions and millions of readers and listeners that she commands, and she's just sharing a few headlines and perspectives. You can get us on our Facebook page, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. We're going to repurpose this and publish the audio podcast. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, we're there. Just go Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Thank you all so much for joining us on today. I just really, 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 really appreciate y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just love one another today. Love one another. Peace and blessings.